As we speak, I'm about 85% of the way through my sauna build. I still have to paint the exterior, then I got to install the stove, but in this video, you're going to see me build my very first sauna door. I bought a sheet of 3/4-inch birch plywood, which will become the core of my door. The plywood core is essential to the strength of this door, keeping it from twisting and giving me something to screw into from all sides. I started by cutting out a 22-inch-1/4 by 80.5-inch piece of plywood, and I was a little bit nervous about getting these cuts exact because you really don't have any room for error on a door build.
No, right?
But my daughter was there to guide my spirit. She's really good at that. The next step in the build was figuring out how big the door window was going to be. In theory, I would love a gigantic window, but the more glass you have, the less thermally sound your sauna is. And if your focus, like mine, is turning your sauna into an active volcano, then you need to keep the window relatively small. I settled on 12 inches wide by 36 inches long. I used double pane tempered glass, which supposedly is the correct glass for sauna doors, and then I transferred the measurements to my door core. The whole reason for doing the door myself was to save money, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could make an awesome door. I feel like craftsmanship has been replaced with crappy shit, and I'm bringing the quality back. After I got the window laid out, I had to figure out how to cut a window-size hole without compromising the edges. It's easy to cut out a hole. It is not easy to cut out a hole that's structurally sound. So, the first thought I had was to use a track saw or a circular saw, but I wouldn't be able to complete the cuts all the way, so that wasn't going to work. Then I thought about using my router, but I have a pretty up and down relationship with my router.
Just do what you're told, router.
So pretty quickly I realized that this wasn't the right tool for the job. Then I thought about using my Japanese handsaw, but that actually was way too hard, even though it was accurate. So finally I settled on my multi-tool. It handled all the heavy lifting, and then I did come back with my Japanese handsaw to finish the cuts. In the end, my beautiful hole was wide open for the world to see. Once I got the plywood core situated, I moved on to the exterior face of the door. Western red cedar has been the go-to wood for my sauna build. Not only are the interior walls made out of it, but the sauna benches and the soffit of my sauna are made from Western red cedar. So, I figured the door would look great if it matched that too. I decided to use 1x6 tongue and groove boards for the door. I ran them vertically, which I think gives the front of the sauna like a real grand aesthetic. And yes, that is the first time I have ever said a real grand aesthetic. Adding the boards to the front of the door was real easy. You just got to be sure to use stainless steel brad nails, otherwise the nails will rust out. And you don't want to use wood glue between the plywood and the boards because you want to allow the boards to move with seasonal contraction. Now, an easy move to get two clean lines on the top and the bottom of your door is to just add the full tongue and groove boards and then cut them when you're done at the top and the bottom. Once I had the boards on, I used my circular saw to cut out a rough window hole, and then I came back with my router. Using a flush trim, bottom bearing router bit, I ended up with a really nice exterior face for my door. The next step in the build was to add insulation to the interior side of the door. When I was doing my research for this build, I noticed a lot of the doors for sale were just cedar and they had little to no insulation. For me, this made absolutely no sense. I worked my ass off and spent a good deal of money insulating my sauna, and I'll be damned if my door becomes the weakest link of this project because it has no insulation or because it isn't constructed well. So I needed to find a proper sauna door insulate. Artec insulation is what I settled on. It's moisture and rot resistant, and it's fire resistant, which are three major reasons why I went with this type. Also, it does have a foil reflective barrier on the front of it to reflect heat back into the sauna, which sealed the deal for me, and I went ahead and bought a sheet. Now, when gluing down the insulation to the plywood, you can't just be any geek off the street.
Gotta be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean, earn your keep.
You gotta use the proper Loctite foam board glue, otherwise your insulation will literally melt. Now, once you apply the glue, add some weight on it and go ahead and wait 24 hours before cutting or using it. Now, if for some reason after 24 hours the foam isn't perfectly sealed to the board, that means you didn't put enough glue. So just reapply as much glue as you can, wait another 24 hours, and then you should be good to go. After I cleaned up the insulation mess, the next move was to add the vapor barrier to the interior side of the door. Like I mentioned before, Artec insulation, it does have a reflective barrier on it, but I had a bunch of vapor barrier left over, and I wanted to be sure that this door was going to last 10 to 20 years. I'm not just building things to build them on this channel. When I build something, I want to build it to last. So applying an extra layer of vapor barrier, it just seemed like a great idea. It's also a pretty easy process. You just start at the bottom and then you overlap the pieces about 3 to 4 inches. Then, just like the stainless steel nails, you need to use stainless steel staples and then staple the vapor barrier in place. Say that 5 times fast. Once I had the vapor barrier in place, then I came back with some high heat foil tape to seal the edges. This way, not only does the door reflect heat back into the sauna, but it also keeps moisture out of the core of the door. Now, one tip, if you use this door design, is not taping over the entire perimeter face. I need one tongue and groove edge to eventually glue the perimeter cedar boards to, so I actually had to go back and cut out some of the foil tape here, and after I cut it out, then we were ready for the interior cedar boards. The plan with the interior door boards was to match the layout of the inside of the sauna. The interior sauna boards were ran horizontally, so I tried my best to mimic a seamless pattern from the door to the wall, and not only did this look awesome, but I actually had a bunch of leftover pieces from the door wall that were the exact size I needed for this door. It was pretty easy attaching the boards to the interior side. Again, no wood glue to allow for seasonal contraction, but you do have to pay attention to the angle you fire your nails at. You need to shoot the nails at a 45-degree angle towards the inside of the board. This way, the next board can properly seat or sit into it. I started out shooting them at a straight down angle, and then I wasn't able to get the gaps to close. So definitely pay attention to that. Other than that, this is a pretty straightforward process. I think the ease of using tongue and groove boards is why the price is so high, but that's a rant for another day. Once the interior boards were set, it was time to move on to the perimeter cedar, but before I could do that, I had to replace the foil tape on the edges. You see, when I was cutting the interior boards on the outsides, I nicked up the tape pretty good with my router. and this explains why I talk about the up and down relationship. Anyways, once I got retaped, I moved on to adding the perimeter boards. This was the part in the build that really locked the door together and gave it its strength. With these boards, I am able to glue them to the ends of the tongue and groove, which, if you remember, is the reason why I didn't want the foil tape 100% covering the perimeter face. Adding wood glue to this frame really solidifies the door. On top of that, I am running 3.5-inch exterior screws through the perimeter and into the plywood core. One of the many reasons I chose the plywood core was because, in addition to not twisting, when you screw into the plywood, it really resists shrinking and therefore gives the screw a nice base to stay attached to. With hardwood, for example, because it's going to naturally shrink, the screws tend to back out easier over time. So big shout out to the plywood for taking one for the team. In addition to the perimeter cedar, I also needed to add the window perimeter boards. It was the same exact process. I had to retape the foil, and then I added wood glue and then came back with the screws into the plywood core. Now the window isn't holding any weight, so I only used 2-inch screws, but this is more than enough for the window frame. Now, in order to ensure that I was actually screwing into the plywood core, I added a nice reference line with my speed square. This door was the most important part of the entire sauna build, so I used some extra precautions to get this right.
Okay, I bored out some Forstner holes with the Forstner bit, and then I got these stainless steel screws. This is the glass front edge, and then to the glass front edge, I'm adding this 16th inch strip of cork. The reason I'm doing this on the front edge is because I don't want to be able to see these from the front of the sauna. I want to hide them with the Forstner bits, so I'm going to lock these into place. But here, on the inside edge, I want to be able to take these off in case I got to replace the glass. Yeah, what?
Can we just have one chocolate, please?
That's my daughter Nora, and like all of us, she loves chocolate. She's adorable, and it's really hard to say no to her, but if you don't, she will walk all over you all day. Now, getting back to the sauna door build, I was just finishing up the window edge, and then it was time to add the trim to the interior portion of the door. Now, when I consulted my good buddy Claude, he said that wood glue wouldn't hold up inside the sauna, so I didn't put it on. And that might be true, but I can tell you what holds up even worse is just brad nails, Claude. So do yourself a favor and don't just rely on AI for advice. Wood glue is required when putting interior trim on the door because it's constantly moving. If it only holds up for a year because of the heat, no big deal. Just reapply the wood glue and nails and move on. I used wood glue on the exterior trim and it's rock solid compared to the interior trim. I'm really not sure how else you would reliably add the trim without using some sort of chemical product that would off-gas inside your sauna, and I definitely don't want to use that. Anyways, the interior trim looks great. I just need to go back and add wood glue at some point.
I would have the wrong bit. We back with that right tool. Let's go.
The next step after installing the glass was to figure out how to get the door to stay still and not let all the good heat out. They say a safe is only as strong as the person who has the key. Well, it's like that with sauna doors. If you can't keep the door closed, it really doesn't matter how well you insulated it. So I started by adding the door stops on both sides. I essentially used 1x4 cedar strips and I tacked them in place with some brad nails, and then I came back with 3¼ inch exterior screws to secure them in place. The door stops prevent a draft on both sides of the door, and they allow me to install magnets so the door can remain closed. I think I spent like $10 on a couple of little door magnets off of Amazon. I only ended up using 2 of them, but you could easily add another one or even add stronger magnets depending on how poorly you install your door. I also installed self-closing hinges on the door, but I have yet to adjust them to get them to work. If you're anything like me and you're a crazy sauna enthusiast, the last thing you want is for your door to let out all that good low loop. And these magnets keep the door shut to take care of all that.
I think if we add the other magnet, it's going to work good. That shuts pretty good. Check that out.
The second to last step in this sauna door build was to add the exterior trim. It was the same exact process as the interior trim, except this time I didn't listen to AI and I went ahead and added the wood glue like we spoke about. But technically we didn't really speak about it. You mostly just listened to me while I explained the no wood glue problem. And if this goes anything like my last YouTube video, then nobody will be listening at all. It'll just be me filming myself, talking to myself on the internet for the love of the game. But such is life. When you do something for the first time, there's going to be mistakes. Whether that's a sauna door or a YouTube video, the important thing is that you don't let the fear of the unknown stop you from doing something you want to try. This sauna door turned out awesome, but now it's time to see how the YouTube video does. Regardless of the result, the intention is always the first step towards creating something great. So don't let doubt or fear or 0 views get you down and stop you from being who you want to be. Anyways, that's my 2 cents for the day. The last step in this build was to add this tung oil to the exterior, which is going to make the cedar a little bit more weather resistant than it already is. I appreciate anyone who stuck around and made it to the end of this video. Stay tuned for my full sauna build, which should be out in about a month or 2.